The Chicago Bulls are reportedly lowering their asking price for Zach Lavine. We're going to be talking about if this is a good scenario for Chicago and how they could still come out on top even though they are lowering the price tag on a Zach Lavine trade. This is Rico Greenhowe, and this is another episode of Bulls Digest. Before we go ahead and jump into it, want to let you know that 75.9% of you guys that watch the videos are not subscribed to the channel. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with the latest news and happenings around your Chicago Bulls. And without further ado, let's jump into the topic of the day, which is Bulls lower trade price on Lavine. All right, guys, so this story is pretty much everywhere. Right now, if you're looking up the latest news around the Chicago Bulls, and this comes on the heels of Casey Johnson. And if you're familiar with the Chicago Bulls, Casey Johnson is generally on the sidelines reporting for the Chicago Bulls. And he also writes various pieces about the Chicago Bulls. This came out of his mailbag, and this is what he had to say in regards to the asking price for Zach Lavine at this point in time. All right, so I don't think the Bulls will take an awful deal if little materializes, but I do get the sense they're open to more possibilities than before. More to the point, I've reported before that their asking price was an all-star level talent, first round picks, or both. My sense is that it has dropped significantly. As I've said from the beginning regarding this situation, this is like a relationship that has run its course. Both sides have remained very professional to this point, and I expect that to continue. But the desire from both sides to make a change has grown. All right, so let's start there. All right, so let's start at that last part where he said that both sides have kept it professionals and both sides are realizing that something needs to happen. This is not anything that's new news for us. Okay, so Artorias has come out and said, look, we have to make changes on this roster. And I'm pretty sure one of those main changes that he's talking about is got to be the Lavine situation. And Lavine has been open and saying that, look, he'd love to be here. That's fine if you want me, but if not, let's go ahead and move on, which it looks like we need to. That's fine too. So both accounts are true, and I think that that's fine that they're both on the same pages, and both are looking to find the solution to this issue, which is the Bulls need to get rid of Zach Lavine in this contract and hopefully get some assets back and start building in the right direction. Lavine can go on and hopefully get back to an all-star level. Now, at the first part of this thing, it says that the Chicago Bulls now are not necessarily tied into a first round pick or an all-star type of player to come back. That's very interesting. And as a Chicago Bulls fan, the one thing that I will say about that is that I feel like we essentially priced ourselves out of this because I think that there were so many deals that we could have possibly made where we could have probably guaranteed that we were going to get some draft capital back. But now it is going to be a tough situation. And I think now the real sell for us is that we need a team to step in that is going to be desperate, guys. And before I look at the team that I think is more likely to make a deal for Zach Lavine, I mean, let's just look at some of the scenarios and things that possibly could happen, all right, for Zach Lavine at this point in time. Okay, so number one, I'm going to go back to the Sacramento Kings. I think that that deal is probably very much on the table at this point in time. And I'm going to throw up an old deal that was hypothetical. And I don't know if you're going to get the draft capital, but I do think that the players are probably still available at this point in time. And that was the Zach Lavine to the Kings for Herter. You had Harrison Barnes and Davion Mitchell. At the time, it was a suggested 2027 first round pick or lottery protected. And again, this was hypothetical, but I do believe that he was open to going to the Kings. So I have to believe there was a deal like this that was on the table that we could possibly have gone ahead and went with here. So I think that you're going to see deals like this, but maybe without the draft capital at this point in time, if you're looking to get some players back that are going to keep us competitive. And then also, too, these are teams that probably can go ahead and absorb a bit of this contract, and we're taking something back. Now, the other extreme to this is that we do a salary dump. All right. And so I think that this scenario is still on the table, even though I think the Nets are saying that they would want to retain this player. But I have to think that the Ben Simmons deal would maybe be an ideal situation if we are doing a salary dump. All right, guys. And so bringing up what this suggested trade was, it was going to be Lavine for Ben Simmons, a 2027 first round pick via Philly, a top 8 protected, and a 2027 first round pick via Phoenix, lottery protected. Now, this was going to be counting on the fact that, look, we're going to get the expiring $40.3 million contract back here, but we would also have to go ahead and deal away Vooch. We'd probably have to get rid of Caruso and anything else that isn't bottled down named Kobe White. So essentially it's saying that we would have to clear off some salary to go ahead and take this on, and then also to make it work to where it is a salary dump. Now, I think that something like this is still possible. Would I want to see something where it is a salary dump? And it also mentions too that Lavine possibly could be traded or moved on from as well by the Nets. I don't know if I necessarily want to see something like that. I would probably much rather see something that keeps us competitive. Maybe there's pieces that we can utilize and move forward, guys. So I'm not sure if I'm necessarily okay with just a salary dump situation, especially with Ben Simmons, who I think is just not going to see the floor at all. And I just think that those draft picks at this point in time, like the Nets, they're in a different position. And again, this is what happens when you don't trade players when they're on the floor, when they're available, and they're playing well. Now, with that being said, guys, for all that is going out there about Lavine and people not wanting him, and, the price, the asking price and everything else has gone down, make no mistake about it, there is still a market for Zach Lavine. And I think that there could be a situation where desperation does get us draft capital back. And this goes back on what I was talking about with the Philadelphia 76ers. All right. And I'll reiterate this, and I'm trying to say this like just plain and simple here. Like, if they strike out with Paul George, okay, which I think that they are, because I think Paul George wants to come back with the Clippers. Who knows? All right. If they strike out with him, then yes, that does leave them Brandon Ingram. And then that would leave them Zach Lavine. Those are I think the three ideal targets for the Sixers here. Now, you could get Brandon Ingram. I get that. I believe he's on his last year of his deal or whatever the case may be. But I have to believe that if the Sixers are going to take a chance with Ingram, all right, you're going to have to give up some draft capital for Ingram. All right. And with Ingram, I'm not saying that, he wouldn't be better than Zach Lavine. I'm not sure about that. I just think that if you get Ingram over to Philly, you don't have Tobias Harris. Let's say that they don't bring back Tobias Harris. I think that Ingram is going to be put in the same situation as Tobias Harris. I think he's going to be a person that's going to be looked upon as a person that has to knock down shots as Embiid gets doubled, as Tyrese Maxey collapses defenses, because I don't believe that Ingram is the slasher, right? He's not the slasher, and he likes to operate a bit more in the post, all right? And that is essentially where Embiid likes to live, in the post, around the elbow, and occasionally he's out there shooting threes as well. So I think that it's going to be a tough situation if Ingram comes over there. Now, with Lavine, I get it. He's been injured. He's been out. He's just a scorer. He's a bucket getter. That's the whole thing, that I think that because he is just solely a bucket getter and he doesn't necessarily have to operate in a certain part of the floor, like he doesn't need to be in the post. He's not just going to be a standstill shooter. And he allows, I think, the Sixers to play a little bit more faster. I think the Sixers are a bit more intrigued in going ahead and making a deal for Lavine. All right. Now, the situation is they could go ahead and they could take on the contract because they have the cap space to do so. And this is, a piece of an article that is up right now. If you look, guys, at the very bottom here, it says the Sixers have the draft picks to call the Bulls and bring Lavine to the city of brotherly love. And this is if they're striking out on Paul George and I think Brandon Ingram. And so, look, guys, I mean, the bottom line is this. I think that as Chicago Bulls fans, we have to hope, and I think that we're going to get a chance here. I think that Paul George is going back to the Clippers. I'm not sure that there's going to be a deal done with the Sixers to get Ingram. I'm banking and hoping on the fact that the Sixers are in desperation mode and Lavine is their last option. I'm just banking on the fact that, look, their president of operations, I want to make sure I say that correctly here, their president of operation, Daryl Morey, he will go ahead and he will throw out some draft picks to get a guy like Zach Lavine over there because he wants the big name. He wants to maximize Joel Embiid and Maxey, right, in their window. And he's a guy that likes to get big names out here. He's not really concerned about defense, guys. Look back at what he did with the Houston Rockets. He feels like he wants to outscore people. He feels like he's going to outscore his way to a championship. Lavine is a bucket getter. He just has to stay healthy here. And so, look, what do you guys think in the comments? Do you guys think that the Sixers deal is not happening? Do you think that the Bulls essentially have pretty much ruined any kind of trade option for Lavine by sitting on him this long? Do you guys think that we possibly could maybe make a deal at trade or on draft night, and maybe get some draft picks and trade down? What are you guys thinking in the comments? Let me know. Even though we have still no idea what we want to do with Lavine, and we know we need to move on for Lavine, I'm still saying go Bulls, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.